Good evening, everyone. It's now 7 o'clock, and we are going to commence with the Budget Committee meeting again. We are reconvening from this morning's session. We had a morning session that started at 9:30 where we heard a number of delegations, and I'm going to repeat what I said then. Any member of the public wishing to speak further regarding an issue on the 2020 Budget Committee agenda for today may appear before Council at its meeting on December 16th, 2019 at 7 p.m. when the recommendations from this meeting will go forward for final consideration. If you wish to speak as a delegation, please sign the sheet located at the back of the room or notify the Clerk's Department no later than noon the date of the Council meeting. Any PowerPoint presentations must also be forwarded to the Clerk's Department no later than noon the day of the meeting. Just so everyone understands the process, tonight we're receiving information from delegations to the committee. The committee will be reconvening at another meeting on December 10th when we'll be deliberating and making a recommendation to Council for Council's consideration on the 16th. And with that being said, I don't see any regrets for this evening's session from the committee. I can't imagine there are any declarations of pecuniary interest, but are there any? I see none. We will then proceed with the delegations to the first item, which is the 2020 operating and capital budget delegations. I have 4 listed delegations. I will call those 4, and then I will poll the audience for anybody else. The 4 that I have are Crawford Hughes, Susan Alexnis, Elizabeth Chalmers, and Rob Kent. Crawford Hughes, you're the first up. We look forward to your information, and you have up to 10 minutes. You should be able to open that item up.
Hold on a second.
Thank you.
There you are.
There you go.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor Burton, Chair Adams, committee members, town staff, and fellow residents. My name is Crawford Hughes, and today I'll be presenting to you my idea today for a new skate park in Oakville Ward 3. A little bit of information about me. I'm 14 years old. I was born in Ward 3. I've grown up in Ward 3. I plan to spend the rest of my life in Ward 3. I love mountain biking, snowboarding, scootering, football, and many other sports that involve being outside. And over the past couple of years, I've took up scootering. I love it. It's one of my favorite things I've done over the past few years. But there's one main problem that I've noticed throughout that, and that is the lack of skate park access. I'm traveling 25 to 30 minutes each time with my friends and I just get to a skate park around the corner. And by that time, it's dark already, and we can't go scootering anymore. So I'm here today to change that. My overall goal is to have a skate park built in Oakville Ward 3 to allow others to learn to skateboard or scooter in a safe and encouraging environment. I'd also like to learn the process of leading a big project in design and learn about the government decision process, as when I'm older, I'd like to be an architect. Today's youth, tomorrow's leaders. Obesity in children has tripled in the last 30 years, and kids and teens like me spend an average of 7 hours a day on their phone. And 4 in 5 adolescents do not get enough exercise. Children and teens should participate in a minimum of 60 minutes of activity per day. And 45 minutes of just scootering alone burns 350 calories, whereas 45 minutes of walking only burns 149 calories. I like to create a safe and designated place where kids can skateboard and scooter to learn to or enjoy their current sports. Over the past couple months, I've been researching many times. There's a large gap in Oakville, specifically Ward 3, where there is no current skate parks. I visit different parks between a skate plaza, a big air park. There's always a common theme between the 2 parks that fit for both skateboarders and scooters. I visited parks from all the way here in Oakville to all the way in Australia. I spoke to riders, parents, businesses, and the community themselves, and challenges that they faced around driving themselves to get to the park and getting home even. I asked businesses about questions and comments about the skate parks themselves, locations, and how they would be built. And on the riders themselves, what they would like at the park and how they would like to be able to ride there. I also investigated other community projects, including the Hamilton Valley Park, where they looked at their current parks, the usage, where they are, and what goes on at those parks throughout the day. A possible build partner for this skate park could be Canadian Ramp Company. They're an action sports design and build firm based in Oakville for the past 10.5 years, and they've built over 2,000 skate parks all around the world. I know there is a buy-in for this project, but this is the possible build partner, Canadian Ramp Company. So a map above is the current skate parks in Oakville. There's a red line, which is Oakville, and Ward 3 is the blue line. As you see, there's skate parks all around in Mississauga, Burlington, Hamilton, and Oakville itself. But that purple dot right there is Cornwall Road Sports Park. That is my proposed location for the skate park. Cornwall Road Sports Park. You may know it as the Baseball Diamonds, the Little League Park, or just the park in general. This park sits next to the GO train tracks in between the Whole Foods Plaza and the Longos Plaza. It currently has 2 baseball diamonds, a large parking lot, lights at night, and a park itself. You may be wondering, where could that park go in this park? As you see here above, there's 2 main spots, both one up by the park itself or one down below by the road and the scoreboard. This park would fit for a 3,500 square foot park. As Director of Parks and Rec, Chris Mark likes to say, he likes to have eyes on the park at all times, see who's going on, what is there, and why. Throughout my research, I realized that there's 2 different types of parks, a modular skate park and a concrete skate park. A modular skate park is a concrete pad with metal ramps that are placed on top of it. They're more cost efficient, and these are premium quality ramps on a concrete pad. Whereas a concrete skate park, like Shell Park as an example, there are concrete ramps and a base that are dug in ground. They are more expensive, but they're out of sight. My design. I actually designed this by myself using a 3D modeling software called SketchUp. I then sent this to Canadian Ram Company, which they did a real-life rendering of this park. This park is fit for both skateboarders and scooters to enjoy their time there, including a half pipe, a box jump, rails and ledges, and even a roll in itself. This park fits both riding styles that I mentioned, and it's 100 feet by 35 feet, and it's premium quality ramps on this concrete pad. Some cost and timelines of these parks. The modular skate park, as shown before, it's $140,000 for the ramp installation. Then it takes around 45 to 60 days for the park to be finished. Canadian Ram Company or any other skate park manufacturer would build the ramps themselves and install them. Then a contractor pours and sells the concrete pad, which would be an estimated $50,000. A concrete skate park is all to be determined by the town and the company themselves. The town goes to the park with a budget, and they will design to that budget and the area that is given. So, throughout my research, I looked at some possible funding ideas, including Trillium funding, sports and tourism grants, and fundraising. Now, I know not all these apply to our award, but the main would be private funding for naming rights to the park. As I'm already investigating these in companies right now, with a marketing company to find a private funding for this park to help accelerate the process. Challenge some of these challenges head on. Noise, noise, noise. Noise is the biggest so-called problem of skate parks. But is it really though? A modular skate park produces an average of 57 decibels of noise, but a road produces 70 decibels of noise, and a baseball park and a train pass by produces 85 decibels of noise itself. NIMBY. I'm sure you guys know what NIMBY is, not in my backyard. The current education on skate parks says that it's just a place for people to hang out and do nothing. But that's not true. A little education on these parks to the community will show that it's a place for students, teachers, and anyone around the age to go to the park and hang out, skateboard, scooter, anything. Some of the cost and budget restraints involving this. Love the idea, but it's not quite in our budget for this year. How can we help to eliminate that problem with private funding for naming rights, like I mentioned before? As I sat throughout many meetings for the past couple of months, I was asked one specific question. Is there a need for a new skate park in Oakville Ward 3? I set out to answer this question by using an online survey through SurveyMonkey. And as you can see above, on the top right, there's a pie chart which shows the average age, all the way from under 14 to 19 years older. Kids and teens, all the way up to adults, can enjoy the park there and have a great time. And then below that, there's a question that asks, what ward do you live in? 86% of the respondents said they live in Ward 3, Southeast Oakville. This showing there really is a need for a park in Ward 3. Then to the right of that, ask another question. Would you be interested in trying to learn to skateboard or scooter if this park was built? 80% of the respondents said they'd like to learn the park, this creating a new activity for many to get outside off their phones and enjoy the daylight. Also, as of right now, we have an update of 590 individuals who would use or support this park currently. Overall, over the past couple months, I learned the Town of Oakville planning and budget process. I've had opportunity to interact with counselors, directors of Parks and Recs, and Commissioner of Community Services. They've all been fantastic to me. I'll send an email at 10 o'clock at night, I get a response within 2 minutes. My biggest part of OLO will be the community interaction. I developed and managed a survey with my neighbors and presented at my local school, Maple Grove Public School, around the corner a couple weeks ago. But overall, my biggest part of it would be the fantastic experience. These past couple months have been amazing, and I've learned many new things and really enjoyed my time. Please consider this park for the Ward 3 in the 2020 budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the information. Are there any questions? Councillor Chisholm.
Well, I'm very impressed with your research and your data that you've provided. This is close to my heart because I used to work with the town as the Senior Manager Recreation Services, and my project was Shell Park. So I know exactly what you're talking about and all the challenges you have with it. You have started, you're out of the gate, what you've done to this point, and my congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Councillor Hasselthiel?
Crawford, thanks very much for coming out. I have to say, your initiative, the research, your determination, you're a role model for everyone who comes
Thank
to
you.
budget. You've done great. Could you just perhaps share with us a little bit some of the comments you might have gotten in your survey?
For sure, yeah. So over the past couple months in my survey, I got many comments just sharing on how they love the idea. My favorite one would have had to been, I love this idea so much, I'm always driving to Burlington or Mississauga or the end of Oakville to get my kids to a skate park. Having a park close by would be amazing.
Perfect, thank you. My other question is for Chris Mark. So Chris, can you just give us some perspective? Is a skateboard park in the master plan in terms of a need for the town?
Through you, Chair Adams, the master plan does speak to skateboard parks. It speaks to several that should be built throughout the town. Geographically, they should be spaced out throughout the town. Right now, we have obviously we have one at Iroquois Ridge, we have one in Glen Abbey, we have Shell Park, which Councillor Chisholm just mentioned. So definitely on a geographic basis, the master plan does speak to having skateboard parks spread throughout the town. So certainly there is a gap within Ward 3 at the present time.
Thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
And Crawford, once again, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Robertson?
Crawford, do you see it being lit at some point? I'm often near the Norton Park one, and I see how well it's used at night. There's kids till 11 o'clock all the time, and you're right, they're not just hanging around being goofs. They're all being respectful while one person goes out, and I'm really loving seeing what they're doing. So do you see lights in your future with this park?
As far as the park-wise, lights would be an extra thing that could go onto them, as well as the lights for themselves. It's not necessary, because when it's dark, you can't skateboard or scooter, so they could just go home from then. Because there is lights at the diamond themselves right now, and depending on nighttime, like how far they could shine out, they could be accessible also to the park.
Okay, and Councillor Giddings?
Thank you, Crawford.
Thank you.
Question for you regarding the size. You mentioned 100 feet by 35 feet?
Correct, yeah.
That's the design that you did.
Yes, that's a design I did, but it can be changed or any other designs that are possible.
All right, and what you talked about a premium quality park. What makes a skateboard park premium quality
Yeah, so
versus
these are
a
Canadian Ramp
regular?
Company's top of the line ramps themselves. And so they're the top of the best you can get for the modular skate park ramps there. And they also have like a noise reduction underneath the park itself. It's like a foam insert that helps just reduce some of that noise also.
And that's an Oakville company.
Yeah, they're right from the corner, just on the above the side of the highway.
Good stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any others? Thank you very much for your information.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. And as a side note, well presented and prepared. I'm very impressed. Susan Elksness, on behalf of the Clearview Oakville Community Alliance. Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, the pressure's on after that presentation. Just get myself arranged here. Okay, so thank you very much for the opportunity to delegate tonight. My name is Susan Alksness, and I'm Vice President of COCA, which is the Clearview Oakville Community Alliance. We're the Residents Association for Clearview, and I'm delegating today in support of the transit budget request for a ride-hail pilot serving Ward 3. Clearview, you can see in this slide, is a mixed-use area. It's predominantly residential, but and it's bounded by Royal Windsor, Ford Drive, QEW, and Winston Churchill, and it's in the northeast corner of Ward 3. There's about 2,200 homes with approximately 7,000 inhabitants and a relatively high proportion of elementary and high school students in the area. Town staff, I'm sure, can get precise data on that, but anecdotally, one of our neighborhood schools, James W. Hill, has 6 portables at the moment, so there's a good supply of future high school students coming out of Clearview. All these elementary school children are prime age for use of recreation, culture, and library programming, which is mostly located outside Clearview. We do have a library branch with limited programming and limited hours, but we're very grateful to have it. So as we know, high school students need transit for school, for extracurricular activities, and to get to and from their jobs. I would also add that in Clearview in the south corner has a number of subsidized housing units, and understandably, we'd expect that there might be a higher proportion of occupants in those areas that have a greater need for transit. I'd also like to point out that on the west side of Clearview, if you take Ford Drive, you can't actually walk there. There's no sidewalk. It's very difficult to bike there. So travel by foot or bike is difficult there. So I just wanted to mention that on the north end of Clearview, we have several destinations for employees coming in and out of, so not residents, but folks who work there. There's going to be 5 hotels there. Currently, there's 3. There's one under construction and another one in the planning phase. There's a couple of fast food restaurants, some light industrial employers there as well. And I know from one of the hotels that they do have quite a few of their hospitality staff coming in on transit. Immediately southeast of Clearview, as noted on this slide, there are other employers likely to have staff using transit. There's several light industrial and warehouse employers. There's some retail restaurants and the sheet metal workers training center. Currently, transit is a little bit easier for these folks because of their proximity to Royal Windsor Drive and a higher frequency of standard size bus service. But there should be employees here who would also use the pilot program that's been proposed for the budget. So Oakville Transit has tried numerous approaches to provide adequate service to Clearview families and employees, and this is a challenge due to our location and our population numbers. So the current transit service, the current set of routes that we have coming through Clearview is helpful, but it still has some significant problems. And I've included several slides here to provide just a few examples. Believe me, I found a lot of examples of very convoluted transit routes, but I tried to limit myself to just a couple. So this shows if you live on Wakehurst Crescent, which is in the northern corner of Clearview, how you would get to Town Square leaving at, say, 10 a.m. on a Tuesday. So one route takes you an hour, another takes you an hour and 17 minutes, another one takes 51 minutes. The 59-minute route, I think, has about a 20-minute walk included in that trip. Oops. Oh, yeah. Oh, I went down on my computer instead of your computer. Okay. So this is, so we know high school students use transit, so I wanted to see what would happen if a student was attending White Oaks, had something after school when you have robotics or, say, play rehearsals. You might be there for a couple of weeks in a row, every day for a couple of weeks, finishing up around 9 o'clock, perhaps in the evening. So here's the routes that were suggested for leaving White Oaks at 9 p.m. and going to Eddie Shane Drive, which is in sort of the northwest corner of Clearview. This student will be walking a minimum of 24 minutes, no matter what route they choose, and it could be as much as 42 minutes that they're walking. The fastest way home is 51 minutes, but 42 of those minutes are walking, partially along a section of Ford Drive with no sidewalks. This is the only version of the trip that I looked up, so I didn't search for the worst example. I just went, okay, 9 p.m., leaving White Oaks, let's see what I find. So this is just a random sample. When I was looking at this, I thought about my own daughters doing their robotics and play rehearsals and needing to get home at 9 o'clock for weeks at a time. Here's one more example. This is if you go to Oakville Trafalgar High School. So this high school is right in our ward. So this is, again, a student heading home at 9 p.m. on a weeknight. Their parents are working or they can't get a carpool with somebody. They want to get home to Eddie Shane Drive. If they want to wait 54 minutes, they can take a bus. But that bus ride would take 39 minutes. However, they'd spend 35 of those minutes walking. They'd be on the bus for 4 minutes, and they'd be walking for 35 minutes. So Google Maps tells them, just walk home. It's going to take you 57 minutes. So that's what the dotted line is there. That's the route walking. You see at the top, there's a little picture of a guy walking. So it says now you could leave school 5 minutes early and catch the earlier bus, but it still is a 39-minute ride. I mean, a 39-minute trip with a 4-minute bus ride. I'd also say that the student doing that walking would have to cross several busy roads that have lots of trucks. This would be at night, of course. Winter weather would be an issue. This wouldn't be a safe choice for someone walking or someone on a bike, I would argue, particularly in the winter. The moral of the story is don't miss the bus, or maybe even don't do after-school activities if your family can't drive you. So I did, as I said before, I didn't even include some of the slides with really crazy, long, convoluted trips, like an hour and 20 minutes to Iroquois Ridge Community, to Rec Center. There were some other great examples. But I do want to thank Oakville Transit for keeping the needs of Clearview residents and workers in mind over the years and trying different scenarios. We're really grateful that they've proposed a pilot of ride hail for Ward 3, and we request the Budget Committee to fund it, please. Who needs viable transit? Here's some examples. High school students with parents working at night, seniors who don't drive, commuters into and out of Clearview, hospitality workers at our 3, soon-to-be 5 hotels, light industrial workers at the north and south ends of Clearview, residents in subsidized housing and others who don't have enough cars for everyone in the household, and lifestyle changers who are responding to climate breakdown. Families using the new rec center in Ward 3 will also want to use transit. When COCA and Clearview representatives participated in planning sessions for the new center, we supported everything and made only one request. Our one request was adequate transit to the new center so that Clearview residents, particularly youth and seniors, could get to the center and use it. Our transit options to Iroquois Ridge Community Center are terrible and time-consuming. We were assured at the time that there would be transit to the rec center in Ward 3, and we're grateful that Oakville Transit has come up with a cost-effective way to provide this. We reached out to our residents, some local employers, for feedback, and we got 128 responses. Some of the responses were things like, as a result of the inconvenience of fewer routes in Clearview, my teenagers opt to not take it. If it didn't take a ridiculous amount of time to get home from their high school, they would take it much more often. So in conclusion, there's a demonstrated need for viable transit. Clearview is wrong-sized for full-size bus service at all hours, but we're right-sized for on-demand, door-to-door, or door-to-hub and mini bus service. Please fund the Ride Hail program to keep our kids and seniors and workers safe and to help us all be climate friendly. Ride Hail is cost effective. It's 25 to 35% less than traditional bus service. Since it uses smaller vehicles, it'll become less expensive as electric buses are brought online. It's safe, secure, and more convenient. And with our climate breaking down and the increase in precarious employment that drives more people to need safe, secure, and convenient transit, Oakville Transit needs to support the support of the Budget Committee in order to pilot the Ride Hail program in Ward 3. Please approve this expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your information. I know that our staff are working on a memo to the committee on the issue of transit in the area, and I wonder if maybe Mr. Cole could prepare himself to come down and provide us some information. Members of the committee, do you have questions for the delegation? Councillor Chisholm?
I just got a quick question, and understanding the timing to get down to our rec centers or down to town center. And I know the community well. When it first started, it's the geographic isolation where it's at. When you're talking with youth and students and you say, well, it's too far to go, do they default and go over to Mississauga, to the rec centers over there?
We haven't asked that question. I know that at the Mississauga Rec Center, you have to pay an out of town, like, higher fee. So I think for some families in Clearview, that wouldn't be something that they would be anxious to do. But we could try to find out how many possibly are using that center. If you walk there, I think it's got to be a good 25-minute walk. But I'd need to map that out on Google Maps to see. Thank you.
Other questions from the delegate? And Councillor Haslett-Field?
Thanks very much for coming out. So what I'm taking from your presentation is that in order for you to have a complete community where people can get to use the services that others have much closer to home, this would help complete that community. Access to use the community center, access to get to major parts of, whether it might even be a grocery store. Would that be correct?
Yes, I did do, for Maple Grove Plaza, which would be our easiest grocery store to get to without transit. It still takes a long walk for people. Most of the bus that goes through Clearview currently goes either to the Clarkson GO station or to the AMC Entertainment Centrum north of the QEW, and those routes work, for some people's needs, but if you want to go headed west or south, it's very difficult. You have to walk quite a ways to catch a regular transit line.
And Chair Adams, I have a question for Director Cole next.
Very good. Are there any other questions of the delegate? Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to ask Mr. Cole
Thank you.
if you wouldn't mind coming down to give us a little bit of information, a little bit of background with respect to the work that's being done. And Councillor Haslett-Field, if you've got a question, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, at a previous Budget Committee meeting, the question was raised as to the level of service, transit service to community centers throughout the town. And so Oakville Transit has put together a report that provides all of that information. In short, what it says is that every community center that we currently have is well served by conventional fixed route transit for all hours of operation, for all days of operation, but that the new Oakville Trafalgar Community Center would be served by only one fixed route, which operates only Monday to Friday with limited hours. The travel times that were shown in this presentation are actually pretty close. Depending on the time of day. For example, service ends on the Route 11, which is Southeast Oakville, and Route 12 in Clearview at around 8:30. So anybody trying to get home by transit at 9 o'clock, it's going to take them an hour walk. So we have, over the years, tried various solutions with fixed route transit. And there simply isn't enough demand in the area to warrant the cost of that service. We now have Route 12 that operates, again, 30-minute frequency in peak, 60-minute off-peak, not on weekends, early finish in the evening, same as Route 11. And both of those services are grounded in the GO train times. So they're fixed with to connect with the Clarkson GO station and the Oakville GO station, which means there's not the ability to provide convenient connection between the two routes at the point where they meet. So at Royal Windsor and Winston Churchill, where those two routes would connect, there would be anywhere from a 15 to a 20-minute transfer time. Anybody living in Clearview looking to get to Route 12 probably has anywhere from a 5 to 15-minute walk to get to transit, and then a total of about 29 minutes on transit. So that's where those times come from. We felt that there may be an opportunity to address this. As you'll recall, our report on funding, ISIP funding opportunities went to council recently, and one of those projects was for an upgrade to our on-demand scheduling software. There are three major components of that software that lend itself to this as a solution. One is family of services, which mixes all of the different types of transit services that are available to make sure that the right mix and the right type of service is used. Another one is the ability to implement a zone type of service. So you would set up a fixed area and you would have designated resources for that area. People can travel from point to point within that area, and similar to our home to hub, they could travel from anywhere in that area to the hub that is designated for the zone. And then the third bit of functionality we get from this is the real-time ride hailing, which allows customers then to go to their smartphone, book a ride, track the ride, manage the ride, and be picked up basically at their door, at the end of their driveway, and taken to whatever location within the zone they're traveling to or to the nearest hub. So there are obvious benefits from a safety, security, a travel time perspective. A trip that would take on regular transit an hour and 15 minutes can be done in 12 minutes. From a safety perspective, people traveling at night after dark are being picked up at their door, dropped off at their door. And this type of service, as was noted, is less expensive, approximately $25 to $30 an hour less to provide the service. So we thought that given that we have this new capability, this new functionality coming in 2020, given that we have a need that cannot be reasonably, I don't think, or sustainably addressed with a fixed route conventional service application, that a pilot of this might be appropriate. And it serves not only as a means of gauging the demand for this type of service in that area, but also provides us with an opportunity to pilot the functionality of this new software and better understand its application in other areas of the town. For example, North Oakville, where it has the potential for significant cost avoidance on new service, and other areas where demand on existing fixed route might be replaced with an on-demand type service. The report would be available to you December 10th.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions?
So Director Cole, as always, has been very thorough, and my question has been answered. And Barry, I just want to say thank you for always not only being service-oriented, but cost-oriented. It's heartening. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Appreciate that, Mr. Cole. Elizabeth Chalmers, you're up next, and I think you're speaking of the same matter.
Yes, I am, but Mr. Cole said it all so much better. Anyway, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to delegate. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Joshua Creek Residents Association, asking that funding for the pilot project of the new technology be allocated to Ward 3 in the 2020 budget. You've heard from COCA, who obviously want the same thing. I reached out to the other 3 residents associations in Ward 3 on a short time frame, so only heard back from 2 of them. Oakville Lakeside Residents Association and the Chartwell Maple Grove Residents Association both are supportive and interested in having a pilot project in Ward 3 as well. With the support of this council, residents of Ward 3 worked hard to get a community center in the neighborhood, and we're very much looking forward to the opening in 2020. However, parts of the ward, as you've heard, have limited access to transit, to the facility through transit. The bus route, which previously ran through Ward 3, along Lake Shore and Ford Drive and connected the ward, was canceled as of September 2016 because the ridership was deemed insufficient. The current transit services, the weekday Route 11 and the home to hub, do meet the needs of some residents, but they don't provide the consistency and the frequency of service that's needed to make public transit a reliable and a priority choice. So we were very pleased and excited at the information that Director Cole provided to us about the new technology. about the real-time ride-hailing, the zone of services, which is a fantastic way of getting people to parts of a ward or an area, and of course, a family of services for the following reasons. Transit services can be delivered as needed at a much reduced cost to conventional routes, and thereby offering the frequency and consistency that people need to rely on public transit. Transit services would be readily available to those who do not have access to a vehicle, especially teens, youth, and seniors, or who might not be able to walk for time of day reasons, evening, weather-related reasons. People already understand and use that ride-hail technology, so it's a pretty minimal learning curve to get people on board. Probably nothing for the teens and the youth. And a town program doing that will provide a level of safety and security for people who aren't comfortable with private ride-hail or even comfortable with taxis, who don't want to put children in taxis and that kind of thing. So running that pilot project in Oakville, in Ward 3, would give Oakville Transit the opportunity to perform the due diligence needed to determine the viability of the technology. As Director Cole pointed out, the only community center that isn't going to be serviced by public transit will be the Oakville Trafalgar Road. All of the other ones have service in the evenings and on the weekends. So, like Coco, we ask that you agree to the allocation and inclusion of this pilot project in Ward 3 in the 2020 budget. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Councillor Hasselfield.
Thanks very much for coming out. I just wondered, Elizabeth, can you comment on once the bus got canceled on Lakeshore Road, what were some of the issues that came forward from the residents in regards to that?
So we got an earful about that. As you will recall, certainly, and Mayor Burton and Councillor Giddens were at our AGM when people stood up. There's a significant, and it was pointed out in the COCA presentation, became a significant exercise of time to get from the east end of the ward to the west end of the ward and beyond. So anybody who had something to do, they had children working, they wanted to access community centers on the other side of town, the north, it was a real struggle. And the times were, as said earlier, ridiculous and didn't make any sense to do it. I mean, you can walk many places. There was also a lot of concern that that bus connected the ward, right? It connected Clearview into JCRA, collected all 5 of the neighborhoods in Ward 3. It also gave people access to downtown Oakville to use the establishments down there. So it was, I understand why, it would be deemed insufficient. There was only less than 100 people per day on the route. But that's going to be, every year you must have a route that has the lowest ridership. So at what point do you say, well, we're not going to keep cutting routes? Do you put in a floor? If you make this level, we'll keep conventional, and then we can use this type of technology? To me, it would make sense I can't believe it's just Ward 3 that would benefit from it, right? I think it would make sense for many people. When I attended the Halton Integrated Growth Management session, I was there for Ward 1, and there was a number of seniors there, all of whom were expressing concern about lack of access to buses to get up Bronte Road. So I don't just see it for young people. I think it's a great thing for older people who don't drive anymore or aren't going to be able to walk for whatever reason. So I think it has quite a lot of uses. And I was thrilled to read about it. So again, I echo your comments to Oakville Transit.
Thanks very much.
Any others? Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
information. And Rob Kent. We look forward to your information.
Hi there. My name's Rob Kent. I'm here to represent the Lake Ontario swim team and Connors Runners, and we just wanted to propose two improvements, a swim-run facility and improved water access in Lakeside Park. Some of this, I think a lot of you are familiar with, so I think there's 21 slides here, so I'll slip through the first few quite quickly. We want support to help us grow open water swimming in Lake Ontario and running in Oakville. We have two separate proposals that we'd like to propose at this time. A small swim-run facility that has things like change room, meeting room, showers, things like that. And a safe water access to Lake Ontario, which could be in the form of a groin, ramp, or steps. Just a picture of our groups and the general spirit and how we often get together. This is a typical, a lot of people don't quite get it when we tell them that we swim in Lake Ontario, but this kind of visually demonstrates what our swimming looks like on a Saturday morning at 8 or so when you're down at the lake. And again, visually demonstrates what we do. A typical Saturday lost morning swim, that we're environmental stewards of the lake, keeping it clean. And the picture there is tricky and sometimes unsafe to get out of the water. We've had one broken arm, one broken toe, and I forget, 3 broken bones over the past couple of years. Having said that, we do try to be as inclusive as we can of both age and disabilities and abilities for that matter. But as you can see there, Heather's one of our, she did the lost race there and is amputee. And George Milne there, who I think when this picture was taken was 83 or 84, and he's that was 3 or 4 years ago. And everything from there, swimmers like that, right up to Olympians. Connors Runners is the largest local group with 250 annual members and has been a community supporter for over 10 years. Regular volunteers at the Kerr Street Ministries and other charitable organizations in Oakville. Between the two of us, we'd like to propose the two projects, and the idea is better and safer access to the water. This can be done by various methods, including the groin ramp or steps. And we've consulted with town waterfront engineers and believe that any of these methods would work in this location. Obviously, there's more to be fleshed out on that, but it certainly could be done. Swim run facility, we'd like to create the facility that would be the first facility for swimmers and runners in Oakville, and would include, as I said, change rooms, washrooms, showers, meeting rooms. Both are very popular sports. However, there are currently no facilities for runners or swimmers in Oakville, and both would see significant growth from the current 500 members if we had a small facility. And so I think we've done relatively well to have 500 swimmers and runners with literally no facilities. It's essentially pond hockey and baseball in the farmer's field type of facilities. So if we had a little more prominence, it would certainly grow both of those. This speaks to the proposed idea of a groin. There's numerous different layouts and configurations and examples. There's some there. This is an example of small groin and some small barrier islands located at Burl Oak Waterfront Park. This could be a simple and inexpensive solution that creates better access, and importantly too is very useful, especially on this beach, for waterfront erosion. As we know, with the flooding and everything, we just went through redoing that. This is a picture of a ramp at Coronation Park at the very east end. Is an effective, simple, and inexpensive solution to erosion and better public access to the water. We actually did that swim this summer. We went in there and swam to Lost Beach, where we swim there by the pier. This is an example. Take the graphic design with a grain of salt, but gives you a rough example of what we're talking about. A well-designed groin in this location could be a beautiful centerpiece to the park and the waterfront, as well as improving erosion protection, safer access to the water for swimmers, paddleboarders, and the general public. And then this is the same picture. You can see but a much smaller footprint and therefore a much smaller cost. The ramp or steps installed here protected by armor stone breakwater at the proper angle would improve erosion protection and provide a safer access to the water for swimmers, paddleboarders, and public. This is exactly like what was installed at Coronation Park. Let me see, I'm just going to skip through this. There's 4 graphs here that I want to show that are just relevant. This shows the number of members of existing organizations down in that neighborhood. Lost is the second highest group next to the Oakville Club. The size of the facility, Lost is on the far left there, would be pretty much the smallest. And then the size of the actual property, Lost would be by far and away the smallest because there's no ancillary land that we're talking about, you know, where the Brillo Canoe Club is. There's a lot of extra land around there that is included for parking, et cetera, but there wouldn't be in this location. And then this is a ratio of the size of the facility to the number of members. So you can see Lost Swimming and Connors Run is by far and away the smallest of any of these. So in those terms, which I think is a relevant comparison, it seems like a reasonable ask, given the number of people and the size of the facility that we're looking at. This is just a quick sketch up of what we're looking at and the exact location of it. And the vertical picture there, you can see it's actually just taking a little piece of boulevard and utilizing it more usefully. And this is a summary of the price. Essentially, I'll cut to the chase there. The swim run facility would cost about $425,000. This is using the groin, and I think the ramp and or stairs would be significantly less expensive, but for the groin itself would be about, depending on, you know, all the bells and whistles you decided to go with, $150,000 to $350,000 for the groin, and it would be less for steps or ramp. And that's about it.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Haslett-Thiel?
Thanks very much for coming out. In terms of the contribution to the ask, I'm not sure if you have any data on how much those other groups would have paid to have their facilities built. Has any of that information?
No, and I wish I did. We did, like I did approach them about this other information, size and members and things like that. And given that a lot of those have been around for a long time, there's a lot of people there that don't even know. And a lot of them have kind of just picked away over the years and added this and added this. And, you know, there's improvements on the Brillo Canoe Club even just last year. So I don't know their costs and or contributions. Of course, this, money is always the issue, and I totally get it. What we would propose is we would like to see, or would be happy to have a public-private partnership, much like what has been done with other organizations, the soccer and gymnastics and things like that. On a much, much bigger scale, this would be a relatively small ask that way, but something that we could, especially between the two groups, could affordably cover.
So for clarity, affordably cover a $400,000 facility?
Yeah,
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
yep.
Any others? Thank you very much for your information. We'll make sure that the presentation
Thanks.
gets circulated. All right, we've finished the registered list of delegations. I don't think there are, but are there any other members of the public here with information for the committee? Going once, going twice, done. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for your attendance this evening. Members of the committee, I'm going to restrict it to the table here. And we have two items before us. One is the 2020 operating and capital budget delegations, and the other is the Oakville Public Library request for 2020 additional capital funds. Are there any additional asks of information for our staff before we deal with those items? Is there anything that members of the committee would like to have before them for December 10th? Councillor Hasletfield?
I'm pretty sure I already asked, but I just want to clarify. Director Mark, could you report on December 10th what would be included in the budget right now in terms of either providing or increasing water access or assessing the feasibility of the groin?
Certainly, through you, Chair Adams, we do have a report coming to the December, I believe the December 10th meeting that talks about user access. I can tell you at this point in time, there's nothing in our budget or capital forecast for a groin or any such infrastructure that was just mentioned through the previous presenter. Really, in order to obtain that kind of information and costing, we'd really need to do a feasibility analysis to see if it's even possible. So we really are not bringing back any further information related to the delegates' presentation at this time.
Okay, any others? Okay, then I'm looking for a motion on item number 1 that the presentations from the delegations regarding the 2020 operating and capital budget be received. Councillor Chisholm has moved that. All those in favor? That's carried. And item number 2 is the OPL, the library request for the 2020 additional capital funds. And the motion I'm looking for is that $480,000 in additional capital funds for the website design project for the Oakville Public Library be forwarded to the 2020 Budget Committee meeting of December 10th, 2019 for inclusion in the 2020 budget. Mayor Burton has moved it. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much, everyone. That deals with all the items on the agenda this evening. Just to make sure everyone is aware of what the next steps are in the public, on December 10th, the committee will be meeting again for deliberations and making a recommendation to council. Council will then consider that recommendation for approval on December 16th. Thank you very much, everyone. We are now adjourned.